Today we take a look at one of the debatable tier 10 tank destroyers in the game that is slightly too strong within the game, especially for a premium vehicle. This is of course the Object 268 version 5, which is essentially a 268 that's already in the game as part of the tech tree, but has a turret. So this is a turreted version. It loses the armor that the 268 maybe has within the game, but remember, 268 armor isn't amazing. And in doing so, you basically limit the gun depression of the vehicle, and you get a few extra things as well. But the whole thing with the 268 version 5 is that you are a lot more flexible than something like the 268 standard version. But my key thing about the version 5 is that it is super reliable, and it means that you can deal 850 alpha damage every 12 seconds. So there is definitely something that can be said for this being like the traditional, I guess, E4 counterpart that doesn't have armor. So it's effectively got all of the benefits of losing the armor in terms of gun handling being slightly better, just in general being a lot more mobile than the E4, but of course you do lose the armor of that vehicle. So it's kind of the in-between a Object 268 and a T110E4, I guess, is what the you could compare it to. Of course, this having 850 alpha means that you can derp out shells left, right and centre on a lot of opponents. Unfortunately, early on in the game we've done no damage, and we've actually bounced off of a Sheridan because, you know, spaced armour on the sides, just making it OP. We also tried to hit the cupola of the CVP, or the VZ55, sorry, and then of course the actual non-fully aimed shot on the move at the T57 Heavy decides to pen and of course high roll within the game so far. So we've had a reasonably boring kind of result so far, but the key thing that we need to do is we need to push this heavy tank, the MX50B. I'm trying to say to him, go round so I can actually deal a shell of damage, and then we can both retreat. I then try and retreat, get stuck on the corner of this building, but because the 50B is pushing me back, I can't then pull back to allow him to get out of the way. Unfortunately, I feel a little bit bad. The 50B does indeed kind of get trolled on. It's kind of my fault. Yeah, it's just not ideal. I'm sorry if you're the 50B player, but I was trying with the best of intentions to help you out, but unfortunately ended up kind of backfiring, sorry. But either way, what we've got here is a kind of not a great situation for the 268 version 5, where we've lost like 2/3 of our hit points. Tried to help out a 50B, but unfortunately didn't work at all. And now we've got 3 tanks, plus a tank destroyer, plus an E3 that we have no idea where he is. And of course, we have only got 750 hit points, which means we're a one-shot for the T110E3, who crops out of nowhere. Of course, we're putting the buildings in between us and the E3. There's also a 57 Heavy, I believe, that could clip us in 2 shells. So really quick ways to be taken out of the game. So we're hoping that that doesn't occur. Now the E3 is of course pushing forward, trying to get a shell into us, or trying to at least catch us. And of course, me being me, decides to drive into a house, making it a little bit of a tense scenario because the E3 could come out of nowhere, or the VZ could flick onto us. We're not sure. Now the E3 could have fired at us there, potentially taking the shell and taking us out of the game, but luckily he didn't, allowing us to escape with 3,300 damage and 1,180 assistance, and with the ability to then pump some of the opponents that have pushed a little bit too fast. Now then, using the mobility of the 268 version 5, we are running just the standard setup, so this is how fast it typically is. The only perks and equipment that we're using is of course the standard 9 skill crew, because I have 9 skill crews for literally every single nation, because of the kind of change to crews that happened ages ago. But the equipment setup that we have is using advanced optics, we're using advanced loader, and I believe we're also using vertical stabilizer on this thing to just improve the accuracy in general, since you want to be making sure that your shells are hitting, especially if everything in the game can basically pen you. One good thing about this tank though, in kind of the reversal, is that you can pen everything in this tank because the heat pen of this is 395mm, as you get with the Object 268, the standard tech tree version, which is fantastic. And basically nothing that comes towards you is going to be able to deal or allow you to not pen basically with 395mm unless you're aiming at like cupolas or ridiculously angled armor. You basically won't pen, or of course spaced armor, because it is heat ammunition, which means if you're firing at tracks or you're trying to hit any tanks like mercenary tanks that Wargaming thought, oh, we'll just slap armor plates all around them, then yeah, it's probably not going to work. But either way, it's a really, really good tank. And of course, within this gameplay being fairly, it's not the most outrageous gameplay so far, but it's been a fairly easy one to kind of carry the game. Now, I just spot the IS-4, but we don't take the shell. Like, I could have gone for the shell, maybe we would have been able to hit him, but we don't actually go for it. Now, I know that you could hit the IS-4 there, but because we have heat ammunition, it will get blocked by the actual wall itself and won't be able to go through, because we would have needed AP. There is a potential for you to decide to choose not the vertical stabilizers or not the advanced optics, but go for something else that allows you, I believe it's called enhanced reload or something like that, where you can essentially swap between your reload or your ammo types without costing the reload of your vehicle. It's much like the intuition perk is on PC, except you don't lose any time at all when you decide to swap rounds. So this is something that you can use yourself if you are interested in using tank destroyers that have really good HE penetration, really good heat, and really good standard ammo. You can kind of use it to allow you to go against all of these vehicles that you might be coming up against and reliably deal damage to them, which is the key thing. And so that's why I always, in these sorts of things, potentially will use the kind of enhanced reload mechanic. Much like the FE 4005, you can swap between your AP, your HESH, or your HE, dependent on the type of vehicle you're coming up against. So that's something I always like. Now, one thing that you did see there against the Leopard 1 is that the kind of shell velocity of this tank is not particularly great, which means if you are not amazing at, or not even not amazing, but if you aren't actually like okay at being able to aim at tanks on the move, then it can be slightly annoying to be able to deal damage to people. So yeah, you got to make sure that you are capable of being able to kind of pen tanks on the move and lead your shells, because the shell velocity is just awful. So that's not particularly amazing about this compared to something maybe like the Guerrilla, which has a PCR, I believe. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that you have to get advantage of. But either way, 6,812 damage done in that replay, giving 1,500 base experience. We also picked up 1,650 assistance for tracking people, destroyed 4 enemies, came out with a mastery badge, and just under 8,500 combined damage, which was a really, really good result for this vehicle. Let's have a look at another replay where maybe things don't go as well as you'd planned in something like that game. The next replay we have is on the newer map, Hellfire Pass, and it's the map that was released before the last release, being Karelia. So Hellfire Pass is essentially a map that is kind of like, I feel like it's quite a good one to be aggressive on. Like, you can push forward, you can do lots of different things that maybe you won't get away with on a lot of the other maps, or maybe there's just no area where you can do that. And so the one thing I like doing on Hellfire Pass, and you can use it as well, is you can push the central area. So for example, on this game mode in Counter Battle, you can push towards the cap circle, which to all intents and purposes is a really good idea, because it allows you to then influence whether the enemy team can cap, at least whilst you're alive. So this is something I always like doing on the games. I hate losing to cap. I never cap myself, only because I find it very boring. I would only cap if I thought it was the only way we could possibly win, and there was no way of me dealing extra damage. But you're about to see, or are seeing right now, the best result that you can possibly hope for in a vehicle like this, hitting the machine and setting him on fire, and then we get undetected, and the machine then Yeah, he just got 2 shot for the entirety of his hit points. We love taking out the broken vehicles within the game using an equally kind of potentially broken tank within World of Tanks. So 2,100 damage done in a period of 12.7 seconds. So that is the reload of this vehicle to deal 850 damage per shell. Getting a bit of lag because it wouldn't be an Eclipse video without just lagging all over the place. And of course, what you're seeing here is a nice position. You're pretty covered from most scenarios. The position that you're not really that covered for is if the opponents just YOLO round the corner over to the left. Now your teammates, if they have a brain, which, let's be honest, most people in this game seem to be lacking one, yeah, you can get punished pretty hard from the left if they YOLO you. But of course that relies on them YOLOing you, and usually it's not actually worth it for them other than to maybe take out the hit points of your vehicle, at least just you individually, but they will also get taken out. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like a pointless trade other than to just take you out, I suppose. But what I like to do here is just basically be a nuisance to the enemy team. You can poke around, you don't have to be super aggressive. One thing that I wasn't sure was going on in this game is the EBR 105, who decides he's just going to YOLO around the corner at a fully reloaded vehicle. You know, it's typical World of Tanks console things, but there you go. Of course, the Object 277 on the enemy team, which is a really, really good tank, and he seems like he's not an absolute fly within the game because he's not just YOLOing around like most people usually do. He's kind of staying back, and that kind of allows us to kind of decide what we're going to do. It also is allowing his team to come up from behind. So this is a scenario I'm on about. If your E100 that's like me in this game is just not looking over this direction, he can hit the 277, but he does rely on him kind of moving a little bit and actually trying to get a shot. And I guess the 263 behind me is maybe stopping him from doing that. But what you can do is you can try to use the armor like you're seeing here. We've blocked 1,000 damage within this game, so it is possible to block damage, but once again, like I say, you have to make sure that you are angling and just being fully aware in this vehicle. If you are used to playing heavy tanks and you're used to having armor, then this probably isn't the tank for you, but you can still make it work quite nicely. Now, I do take the hit from the 277 because I'm thinking, I'll probably be able to hit him anyway. I could have fully aimed it, which maybe I should have at that point, but we try to avoid it at least there. So we've come away with 5,000 damage, so we've been a pretty useful force within this game, potentially going for the 277 there, don't manage to hit him, but we use this kind of ridge line to hide behind and hit the FE 4005. Once again, if I'd had the enhanced reload, I would have been able to swap to my HE rounds, which have 90 penetration, and been able to derp the FE 4005 during this game. Now then, not a tank you want to be fighting on a ridgeline when you have something like 3 or 4 degrees of gun depression in the 268 version 5. So you've got to try and avoid fighting on ridgelines as much as you can. Now we push back into this position here, which gives us a little bit of cover from the Super Conqueror, and it allows the E100 on my team to potentially move up and try and deal with this pesky Super Conqueror. We've also got a light tank in the back who's trading with a light tank on the enemy team. You start hearing some shells come in, very, very small shells by the sounds of them, and they start coming in from the left, and you're seeing another shell there hit from behind. I know that there's someone behind, but I can't really push the Super Conqueror, so it's a bit of a risky strategy, and so yeah, the Super Conqueror is still looking over this way. Maybe the big mistake that I made within this game was actually re-poking the Super Conqueror, which allows the T100 to take us out. But this is kind of where the Object 268 kind of gets let down. In most other tank destroyers, albeit maybe not the Soviet ones, you'd be able to kind of push forward and deal damage to the Super Conqueror because you have a little bit of gun depression, you're a little bit more flexible. But the inflexibility of this vehicle in particular is kind of stopping us from doing that. But we still had a really, really good result, and the 850 alpha that you get with this vehicle makes this so much fun, and I really do enjoy playing vehicles like this in the game. Of course, the 268, the standard version, is my favourite tank destroyer in the game, and one of my favourites that you'll kind of see on the channel, hence why I've remarked the 268. Yeah, but overall, not a bad result, but could have really done with a little bit more support. And although this might not have been the best game that you'll ever see on the channel, of course, it showcases that the tank is really, really good. And even if you have a scenario where maybe your team don't do a whole lot, I'm not looking at the bottom of the list in the 268 version for the 57 Heavy, the Conqueror, and yeah, not particularly great. But either way, a really, really good and fun result, and I really do enjoy this vehicle. Of course, hopefully it will be coming out for free, maybe, within the next few months. We have no idea. This is just speculation. Obviously, Wargaming removing a lot of the tier 10 premiums from the game. Maybe they'll be re-releasing them as part of a series of challenges and operations. Hopefully, fingers crossed for you guys, so that you don't then have to go out and spend 26,000 gold or something ridiculous what they're actually priced at. So fingers crossed that's what's going to happen, and hopefully you did enjoy the video. If you want to check out any of the other tier 10 premiums, I will maybe make a playlist of the recent tier 10 premium tanks that we reviewed. I've done all that I have on the channel, and so I'm going to have to speak to Wargaming to let them potentially allow me to rent some of the tier 10 ones so I can review them for you guys. Maybe, if that's even possible, I'll give it a go. But other than that, I really do appreciate your support here, and I hope I see you in the next one. Goodbye.